Let's get it rocking. Boom. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages, the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, comment, please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows. Our website is nessp.info. Check it out. Shows, info, our guests, stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, along with Dr. Paul Semendinger, our Major League Baseball and Yankee expert. We're bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. And today, guys, is our popular debate show where me and Jack Hirsch debate the hottest topics from the past, present, and maybe even the future. If we can go ahead and look forward to that with our special guest, as I said, Dr. Paul Semendinger, who participates in our debate every week. So, guys, thank you for coming in, and especially Doctor. Jack's always here normally. I mean, you know, he's got something coming up in the future where he's going to be taking.
You think Jack has nothing to really do, so he's always there. That's the way you make it sound like. Yes. I've got a lot of time on my hands, Mac.
Well, you know, you're going on vacation, Jack, here pretty soon because I'm paying you way too much and I can't afford a vacation. But you're going to be on vacation for a week coming up soon. So I'm going to have to scramble and find some other co-hosts or go solo. So I'd rather have co-hosts because going solo is tough, man. I mean, you got to have a lot of communication skills to do that. And me, you know, I'm okay at it, but I don't know if I can carry the show by myself, so I will miss you then.
You give us a lot of innings, Mac. That's what you do. You give us a lot of innings. You fill in the time. That's your strength.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad I do have a strength. That's very important to me. Doctor's strength is his knowledge of the history, not only of the Yankees, but all baseball, really, and Jack right alongside with him. These two guys are probably the most informed and knowledgeable guys that I know in baseball, at least. And, you know, I kind of try to hang in with these two guys, which is extremely tough. So every week, guys, we go into and we take a Yankee poll, and I go into, or my producer goes into 3 different Yankee groups and asks a poll question. And this one is not a history one. This is more relevant to today. So what I did was I went in and I said, if you had a player, and I didn't name a name, who didn't hustle, might have cost you a run, almost got thrown out, what would you do if you were the manager? And the 3 choices were pull him out and bench him, take him out for a couple games, or just talk to him. So, Jack, I'm going to go to you first. If you were the manager of a team where a guy just didn't hustle, he wasn't running out plays or whatever, what would you do?
I mean, we're talking Gary Sanchez here the other night. I mean, let's be honest about it. I was disgusted. I mean, he hits the ball to the warning track, and he winds up on first base. I mean, it bounces off the wall. He should have been on second base. The Yankees were fortunate to tie the game up. But you watch the replay, and you see Gary Sanchez admiring the ball he hit, jogging to first. When he realizes it falls in and he should be on second, he tries to speed it up, but it's too late. He's on first base. Listen, I'm not the biggest disciplinarian. You know, I wish I was a stronger disciplinarian my whole life and things. But the first thing I would do would talk to him the first time around. have him come in the office, explain it to him, and maybe he would be contrite and he would understand the player that he messed up. He's going to be more conscious of it, more aware. We'd have a nice discussion, and we'd let it go at that, okay? Second time he did it, I'd sit him out at least one game. I'd sit him out a game, I'd make it a point, and I wouldn't do it a day that he would be resting, anyway. It would be obvious, look, he didn't run it out. I wouldn't protect him publicly, but I wouldn't ridicule him, go out of my way. And I'd basically say, no, I like players that really play hard all the time. There's a such thing as false hustle, guys. We're all aware of Robinson Cano's reputation. When he brought it to the Mets, they started complaining he'd be jogging down to first base. Well, Robinson Cano ran one ball all the way out, and he pulled a hamstring or something, and he was out. Well, I hate false hustle, but if it means getting an extra base, okay, that's not false hustle. False hustle to me, you hit a pop up to second base and the guy's pulling a Pete Rose. I don't need that. I mean, that's grandstanding to me, because 99 out of 100 times at least the second baseman is going to catch the ball, okay? But what happened with Gary Sanchez the other night, I don't know Doc's feelings on it. I'm sure your feelings. I think you agreed with me, Mac, already. I was disgusted with Gary Sanchez only being on first base. But I would talk to the guy first, call him into the office. That would be my first course of action always.
What do you think, Doc?
I'm going to agree with everything Jack said. I think it depends on the player. And, the first time, maybe there's a reason why he didn't hustle. I can't imagine because, many of us still play the game in various iterations. And, boy, when we're playing, we're giving it our all. And we're older and it's not necessarily a job to us, but even in our regular jobs, even on this program, right? We give it all we have. We come early. We talk about the programs. We on our blogs and everything that we do. We give everything we have, and it's just a bad look when there's a player in any sport or on any team that just doesn't seem to be invested in giving it that. If we're talking about Gary Sanchez, the coach, the manager who seemed to really get the most out of him was Joe Girardi. And if you remember, Joe Girardi was being tough on him. And that was one of the reasons the Yankees seemed to move on from Joe Girardi, because they thought Gary Sanchez might do better if there was a coach who was more understanding and more patient with him. The end result is that Sanchez hasn't gotten better. And, yeah, he continues to show this lack of hustle. I agree with Jack also that you don't have to hustle like Pete Rose used to run down the first baseline on a walk. I mean, all right, I get that. Like, you're really into it, and that's great if that's what you do. If that's the way you play every game, I don't know if that's false hustle. Maybe it's unnecessary hustle. But when you're playing, you've got to be giving it your all. And I think time and time again, we're seeing certain players, and Gary Sanchez seems to be a player like that who just doesn't. And at some point, then a team has to make a decision. Like, if this is the player we have and he's not fully invested and he's not going to do what we need him to do in order to help us win, well, then he's not helping you win. And then you have to move on and go a different direction. I'm not saying the Yankees need to move on from Gary Sanchez this minute. But he has to have more of a sense that I've got to do what I've got to do to be part of a team that's playing hard. And I in fact, he's not the only one, unfortunately, that I see on the Yankees. But I think that's been indicative of the Yankees under the Boone era, is they just haven't had that killer instinct that go out and let's win. And when you see them play a team like Tampa, like we did yesterday and we did in the playoffs and all last year and the year before, the Yankees seem to be out hustled all the time.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of disagree with both of you. I think you got to send the message right away. Talk is cheap, actions speak for themselves. If you want to set a tone for the team, you've got to take action. If you're going to talk to them, it's sort of like telling a child no. Until you show the child why it's no, he's going to keep doing it. And I think that being a manager or coach, you're kind of like a dad figure in a way, if you're a good one anyway. And you've got to set an example. And by that example, I mean that when you pop the ball up, you hustle. I don't care if it's 99 out of 100 is going to be caught. That one miss could be the difference between you losing and winning a game. I think he should have been benched. And if he does it again, he's out for a couple games. Does it again, he's gone. And that's how you set a tone with a team. If you're just going to talk to him, to me, it's a show of weakness. This should be all talked about before the season starts, not during the season. If it's not talked about before the season starts, then you're not doing your job. So I think you should have been pulled out right away, benched. I don't care if the backup catcher can play or not. I'll find somebody to go out there. And you just told the team, hey, I'm not putting up with that. And to me, action is a lot more than words, guys. So that's what I would have done. The Yankee fans agreed with me overwhelmingly. They said they should have been benched right there. The second was talked to, was what Jack said. And the third was to kick them out for a couple games. I think that's extreme. But I think a message should be sent, and that's not even yelling at the guy. Just like, go sit in the corner. I don't even want to talk to you, really, because what you did out there just hurt the team and hurt us. And so the fans agreed with me this time, first time in a while. But that's what their thoughts were.
Let me tell you a funny thing. I'm down here in Florida. I have Major League Prime. So I'm watching the Yankee-Oriole games on the Baltimore network, hearing like their view. But it reminded me of many moons ago when the Yankees had those weak teams in the late 60s. Bill Mazer was a great talk show host, and he was critical of the Yankee broadcasters because Horace Clarke hit a fly ball to the outfield. It was dropped. And he was on first base when all was said and done. He just didn't hustle and wind up going to second base. And Bill Mazer wanted to know, how come the broadcasters don't get on him? I think the broadcasters have a lot of influence, because if they rip into a player, believe me, ownership hears about it, okay? It's bad PR, and the manager then is humiliated if he doesn't do anything about it. So if the broadcasters are quiet, they don't say anything about it, and they leave it up to our judgment watching the replay or watching it live, it doesn't have the same impact.
I definitely agree with that. And, of course, the biggest example the Yankee fans used was Billy Martin.
What, Reggie?
So, yes, exactly. So anyway, so let's do our little thing we do every week. And I try to do this with Jack every show because I just love trying to get him to not make sure to not answer the question correctly, because even when he doesn't do that, he has more information about the trivia question than I even know. So let's go ahead and let's do our Yankee trivia question for today. And let's bring it up right. This is pretty current, guys. This isn't going back to the 70s or the 50s. So this is the trivia question for today. What Yankee hit a grand slam his first time at bat at Yankee Stadium? So that's a trivia question for both of you. I would imagine that both of you might know this.
I can't say I do. I'm just I'm feeling around instinctively. Sometimes you're just feeling around. It's dark and you don't know where the light switch is. And oh boy, first a grand slam in his first at bat, a first game
at Yankee Stadium.
At Yankee Stadium, and you're saying it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was long ago, but not that long ago. That's the hint. So I don't have to think into the 1920s. I'm just feeling around. I would think a left-handed batter would be my guess, but who knows? This is a long shot, and you're going to laugh at me, missing this, why I would dig this name up. But try not to laugh at me much. Jim Spencer?
That's not a bad guess. I mean, it's wrong. It's not a bad guess. I mean, that's a pretty good guess.
Maybe a guy who played with Jim Spencer. Yeah, but I missed it apparently. Doc,
what do you got?
All right, I think I'm right, but I don't know. But I think it was a Thriller by Godzilla. And Hideki Matsui did it.
Matsui. Yeah.
Yes,
am I right?
Yes,
one. Yeah.
That was the first Yankee to hit a grand slam at his first at bat.
Was that a 4-3 game at the end? What was the score?
Oh my goodness, I couldn't tell you that.
Game? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Matsui, yeah.
He
Yeah,
was
so-
one of our favorites. We loved, especially my son Ethan. He loved Hideki Matsui. That one of the greats, one of our favorites.
Yes, I mean, he's one of the few, and there's a couple that carried over from Japan into American League. Most of them are average over here when they come over, even if they're stars. But he's one of the ones that kind of carried over and still provided power. Had a great bat. I mean, the guy was a great hitter, great situational hitter. RBI's forever with Matsui. So he really performed well for us.
And the ironic part, he wins the World Series MVP in 2009, and he's gone. He's out of there.
Yeah.
So much. It's funny about certain Yankee players of recent times, like even Tino Martinez. He had a great year in 2001. He had 34 homers, 113 RBIs, and they let him go as a free agent. Well, Giambi was coming in, but they did get Tino back for a little while. But you kind of wonder the loyalty aspect. We get mad at players for going elsewhere, signing as a free agent. But are they really? But what about the team's loyalty to them when they're performing well?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jap, because you would think as a fan, we do get upset when other players leave our teams and go somewhere else.
Congratulations to Doc. He's been nailing it. He's on about a 90% trivia rate since he started that Mac.
Yeah,
I'm like the Oakland Athletics of trivia, Yankee trivia history now.
Yeah,
the Athletics come back in the second half of the season usually.
That's true.
So, yeah,
and my pitching staff might not do so well in the dog days of August or something.
No. I mean, you've been nailing them. Good.
Yeah, but I'm going to have to go back into the books again.
Oh my goodness, that book is tough
to get to stump Doc. So, but this is our debate show, Jay.
I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can be, I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
So our debate show starts officially now, where we start hitting the topics and giving our opinions, either yay or nay on our topic. So, Jack, the first topic we're going to cover is, are no-hitters overrated? And as we know, San Diego had one last night, and we'll definitely get to that probably by the end of the show and cover it a little bit where they won 3-0. So what is your thoughts on that, Jack? Are no-hitters overrated?
I hate to say yes. Joe Musgrove pitched the first no-hitter in San Diego Padre history yesterday. It's exciting for the city of San Diego. It's exciting for the franchise. As a fan, they're not overrated, but they are overrated. I'm talking about an accomplishment, okay? First off, baseball, we always say, is a team game, so we always focus on the pitcher. All of these no-hit games, there's always a great play, it seems, to bail them out, of the no-hitter. And isn't baseball about getting on base more than just hits itself? Hits is a way of getting on base. But if there's no one on base and the guy walks, he gets hit by a pitch. Haven't you heard the term when you guys were young and playing baseball, a walk is as good as a hit? Well, when a guy pitches a no-hitter and he walks a few guys, like Dwight Gooden did. How many guys did Dwight Gooden walk? About 8 guys, Doc, when he pitched his no-hitter?
I recall that being the case. I recall when you said how many, I thought 8.
Right. Come on. And everyone is hailing Dwight Gooden for his no-hitter. Mayor Giuliani has him down to City Hall. What an inspiration he is. And I'm thinking, good for Doc. I'm happy for him. But a ton of guys got on base. To me, that's not that great a pitched game. Johan Santana has the only no-hitter in Met history. One ball hit the foul line. Had they had a replay, it could have been overturned. Tom Seaver pitched much better games. Okay,
it was 6, by the way. 6. He
walked
lost 6.
Great. Okay, but the point is taken. 6 guys got on base. Wouldn't you rather see a guy pitch a 2-hitter and walk 1 batter as opposed to walking 6, give up 2 singles and walk a batter? And yesterday, Joe Musgrove, he only pitched to 28 guys. Obviously, he had to pitch well, but there were 3 plays in a row where he nearly lost a no-hitter, supposedly. Hard-hit balls, a good play in the field. He hit a batter. I mean, what's the difference between a bloop single or hitting a batter? Actually, I think it's worse where you hit a batter, where your control is so off where you hit a batter. That reflects more poorly on your pitching than giving up a bloop single. I mean, there's so much luck involved in these no-hitters. The guy's control could be awful, like we gave the example with Gooden. A few men could reach base in different ways. Great catches can be made. The opposition could be weak. David Cohn's perfect game. I wasn't impressed. He pitched it against basically a minor league team. You know, that it was a Twin team, right? David Cohn got a perfect game against. I mean, that lineup was pathetic, you know, over there. It's a hyped up achievement, but it's a lot of fun to watch. Nolan Ryan has something like 7 no-hit games. He's not anywhere near Tom Seaver, Roger Clemens as a pitcher, but because he throws hard and he has a bunch of no-hit games, people, you know, are building that up. The umpire is a big factor, these no-hit games. It doesn't, you know, one guy could be thrown a little better than the other. The guy who has a 5-hitter could be thrown better than the guy with a no-hitter, but the umpire, the way he's controlling the strike zone could mean a lot. I was at a no-hitter, by the way, guys, when I was a kid. In 1969, the Miracle Met team was no-hit in the month of September by Bob Moose of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And guess what? Roberto Clemente made a great play to save the no-hitter. So I don't want to, so there were other pitchers during the year that actually pitched better games than Bob Moose did that day. But the no-hitter's magic. Don't get me wrong. It makes the news. It's headline news still. But as an achievement, I think it's a little overrated.
Jack, are you serious? I mean, how can a no-hitter be overrated? As you mentioned, we had one last night. And first of all, an official no-hitter would be 9 innings. To me, that's an achievement today, just to go 9 innings. To no-hit somebody is unbelievable. You know, that's like saying a goalie stopping all his shots on goals is overrated. An NFL team not giving up a score is overrated. In the first line of a baseball defense is the pitcher, of course. You can point out the other team can't score, has a weak team. You can even say that they may lose the game with a no-hitter. I think it's happened in the past because he walked some people. But to say that it's overrated, I mean, is batting .400 for a season overrated? That doesn't equate to wins. Does hitting 60 home runs a year, is that overrated? That doesn't equate to wins. You can have somebody hit 60 home runs and still finish in last place. I mean, to say it's overrated, Jack, is a little too much. To say that maybe the no-hitter, there's a lot of things that go into it, that's right. But to say it's overrated is like saying that Hank Aaron breaking Babe Ruth's record is overrated. I mean, Jack, a perfect game is extremely rare. Triple plays are extremely rare. They're not overrated. Is a Gold Glove winner overrated? Of course not. I mean, this is a great achievement that pitchers hardly ever get, and it is something special. San Diego, first no-hitter in history, and by the way, the Padres won 3-0, Jack. They didn't score a run. So to say it's overrated is a little too much, Jack. To say that maybe it doesn't equate to a win, yeah, that's true. But even that is very rare. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the no-hitter. I was just as Jack was speaking, I wanted to talk about David Cohn's no-hitter real fast, his perfect game. It was against the Expos, and if you just looked at their lineup, they had a number of guys in there that were actually pretty good. Rondell White was hitting .317 at the time. Vladimir Guerrero's on that team. He was hitting .286 at the time. Jose Vidro was an all-star for a period of time. He was hitting .313 at the time. It was a legitimate major league team. I don't want to discount his perfect game. Or I think it was David Wells who pitched against the Twins. But listen, it's a hard thing to do, and I think when you accomplish something, it's great. And I wouldn't say it's overrated. I would say, like Mac is saying, does it equate to a pennant or anything like that, or anything special bigger than the moment itself? No, it doesn't. But it's still something that every single pitcher aspires to and dreams of. And so I'm pitching tomorrow if it doesn't rain, and I'm hoping I throw a no-hitter.
Tom Seaver had a perfect game against the Cubs. Were 1 out in the ninth and gave up a hit to Jimmy Quarles. But the books are going to show Johan Santana, who realistically gave up 1 hit that was called a foul ball. He has the no-hit in the books. So we're going to fawn over him. And I saw both games pitched. Seaver pitched much better. And David Wells, by the way, followed up that perfect game. He had a perfect game going with 2 outs in the 7th inning against Oakland as a follow-up late in the season, which was he retired, did I say 2 outs? No, he retired 19 in a row. He was 8 outs away from another perfect game. And those are the type of games I love when a guy is really pitching great. We don't make a big deal over no-hitters when it's a team no-hitter. How come we kind of dismiss that? We say, the team pitched a no-hitter, and we always focus on one guy. How come team no-hitters are usually never glorified? It has to be the individual.
Because I think it's an individual accomplishment. If an individual does it, it's something special.
And you're right, Doc. The catcher's calling the game. So you're saying an individual accomplishment. It's a team accomplishment.
And listen, Jack, baseball, as we all know, is not a team sport like hockey, like basketball, like football. I mean, it is a matchup of individuals. It's the pitcher versus the hitter. It's, if the pitcher is no good, it doesn't matter what the rest of the team does. So baseball is a lot more individual as a team sport than most team sports are. So
wait. So you're telling me when the Astros was stealing the signs, they weren't giving it one guy to the other. It wasn't a team effort.
What I'm saying is the matchups where you depend primarily on other players on your team to be successful. If you have a great pitcher, you depend less on them. And of course, on offense, it's all about the batter, right? If the batter doesn't get a hit, it really doesn't matter what the rest of the team does. So, I mean, it is a team sport in baseball, but as I play both sports, football, which I played mostly of, I had to depend on everybody to be successful. Baseball, if you have a great pitcher or a great reliever coming in, there's a lot less dependence on the players in the positions as there would be if you have a pitcher that pitches to the hitters, as you heard that saying before.
I just want to say one thing. As I'm talking about as an accomplishment. As a fan, I love the no-hitter. About a week ago, I'm channel scanning the Major League Network, getting all the games, and I come across the Minnesota Twin Milwaukee Brewer game. It's the 4th inning. Neither team got a hit. So I got to keep watching until they get a hit. And both pitchers had no hitters going into the 7th inning, but the managers started going into their bullpen, not wanting to work up the pitch count. And I'll admit I'm being a little hypocritical here. Once they went into the bullpen, it wasn't the same to me as an individual going all the way. So I know I'm being a bit hypocritical saying that. If they were sticking with one guy, it was drama. It was compelling stuff. I'm just talking about the accomplishment. I've seen so many better pitched games that a guy maybe pitched a 3-hitter as opposed to a no-hitter where he pitched better and was in tough luck. And so I'm just looking as an accomplishment, nothing more. But as far as the drama, it's one of the more exciting things in sport, a guy going for no-hitter, perfect game, and it's winding down.
See, a 3-hit game could be better unless those 3 hits are somebody on first and second and somebody jacks a home run. If you have a no-hitter, you don't have to worry about that. So, I mean, I don't think it's overrated, Jack. I think it's a heck of an accomplishment. I think it's right where it should be, individual achievement you should be proud of and fans love, I think, anyway. So the next topic we're going to go into, which is going to be very interesting, because I know both of these guys are going to disagree with me, but who's more important, the GM or the coach? And I'm up first, coach/manager. And of course, as we know, GMs in different sports have more importance in certain sports than others. But there is no way the GM is more important than the coach. And you can, well, let me make an analogy here. You can go out and buy the freshest food. You can buy the highest quality food that you can get. If you know how to cook, it really doesn't matter, does it? So you can buy any players you want. You can assemble all the talent you want. If you don't have a good coach, it doesn't matter. And guys, I've seen coaches with a lot less talented teams than others and win the game just out of pure coaching ability. All right. So to me, if you're going to say a GM is more important than a coach, I'm going to tell you, you're totally wrong. I've played all sports, guys. And I'm going to tell you right now, without that coach communicating to me, making adjustments on the way I'm playing, and not just me, but all the players, I wouldn't have grown as a player. And you can have all the talent you want in the world. If you don't know how to play the sport correctly, as we saw by the Dallas Cowboys in the last few years, that probably had the most talented team in the league, not go too far. So let me give you another analogy. You are the food and beverage manager of a restaurant, okay? Your most important job is to hire the head chef, which would be a coach or manager. He's responsible for assembling those cooks in different positions, like you would be doing bringing on your coaching staff. He's responsible for a menu that the public would like. And that's the same thing as you coming up with a strategy or a scheme that the public would like to. You're responsible to getting the food out on time management, the service on time. Well, the coach or manager is responsible for game time management. If you want to make an adjustment, say something emergency happens, you don't call a GM and say, hey, the power's out. Or you don't call a GM and say, hey, I got an injured guy. What do I do next? If you don't know what to do, you shouldn't be there. The coach is responsible for the whole running of that team off season, during the season, after the season. He's responsible for the players all reviewing tape to prepare for the upcoming season, that they're working out, that they're working on their drills. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 365 day a year sport now, guys. It's not what it used to be. So if you're going to have a good GM, say let's take an example. Let's say like a Brian Cashman. He's a great GM. And you have a manager like an Aaron Boone who doesn't know what to do with that talent or doesn't communicate to the GM what he wants to assemble a team. You have a great hitting team with a sometimes weak pitching staff. You have guys not hustling around the bases. You have guys that don't work out correctly during the year. The GM's not going to call and say, hey, are you doing your drills right? Are you working out right? Who's training you? The GM's not going to do that, guys. And then when the GM starts running your team is when you start ending up like in the Yankees position or in Dallas Cowboys position or in any great team that has a lot of talent's position. Do you know who the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs are? Probably not. The Utah Jazz? Probably not. Maybe even the Tampa Bay Rays. We all know baseball. I don't know who the Tampa Bay's GM is. I know who the coach is. And when you look at somebody like Aaron Boone, who has a lot of talent, probably won't go to the World Series again this year. But you know something? The Philadelphia Phillies might with a coach named Joe Girardi, because he knows how to motivate players. He knows how to get the team together, believe it in themselves, and how to make players hustle. And, we say Real Amudo is a great catcher. Well, guess what? He has a catcher as a coach. And you want to know something? When you have a player that's been in the trenches as a coach, or a coach that has come through the ranks as a coach, so it's sort of like Bill Parcells, right? Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, who have come through the ranks of coaching in college and have touched on different sports and their knowledge. I don't care if your GM is George Young or not. So more important, guys, easily is the head coach. The GM's got a job to do. He's got a job to sign contracts, get that head coach. That's his most important job. And so far, the Dallas Cowboys haven't got that solved yet. What do you think, Jack?
No, Doc, 1 week ago, Max said the Yankees were going to the World Series. They were going to win it all. Now, 1 week later, they're probably not. I mean, talk about being a front runner 1 week. But listen, I can't blame you completely. I'm watching the Yankee Tampa Bay game yesterday, and I'm seeing the Tampa Bay telecast, and they're interviewing the owners, the action's going on. And then it all falls apart for the Yankees completely. And then I went to one of these delis here, had matzo ball soup, the roast turkey with stuffing, sugar-free cheesecake, the whole meal came full. And then was hoping against hope that the Yankees were going to make a comeback with me not watching the game. And then I tune in, and I see they lost 10-5, and I didn't even bother to want to look at the box score. Nothing the manager could have done in a game like that, okay? And it depends on the sport to a degree. It really does. I think a coach in basketball is much more of a difference maker than a manager in baseball. Listen, we talk Yankees a lot. Look at Joe Torre, okay? Before coming to the Yankees, he managed the Mets, he managed the Cardinals, he managed the Braves. Outside of one short playoff appearance with the Braves where they got swept, where they barely got into the playoffs, he wasn't successful with 3 different teams, not at all. He comes to the Yankees, becomes a Hall of Fame manager. Why? Because they got him the players. It's the GM. Don't tell me. Joe Torre did a good job. He did a great job on balance of handling men. I understand guys like Derek Jeter absolutely loved him. Jorge Posada, Bernie Williams respected the heck out of him. But it was the GM. It was a team that was given to the guy, okay? No matter how great a coach is, take Greg Popovich, the coach of the San Antonio Spurs. He doesn't have Tim Duncan anymore and some of the other players that helped him win 5 championships. And they're just a 500 team. That's just the great Casey Stengel. Who won more than Casey Stengel? Then he goes from the Yankees, you know, where he was one of the most successful managers in baseball history, to having the team with the worst record in baseball history immediately because he didn't have the players. It was that way with Ralph Houck too when the Yankees were declining in age. I mean, the best situation, guys, is where the manager coach can have a say in the personnel decisions, get the players he wants. You know, one of the reasons Billy Martin was a little bit the exception of the rule, actually. He seemed to win everywhere. I mean, there's an exception to any rule you could say. And that's why I think Billy Martin's, in my books, a Hall of Famer. I think he should go there if you combine his body of work player and what he did as a manager was amazing. But you gave the Brian Cashman example, Mac. Don't tell me any manager has meant more to the Yankees than Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman has pulled out some gems like Gio Urshela at third base. I mean, where did he get that from? That the foresight to get DJ LeMayo, you know, when they thought LeMayo might be slipping a little bit. And he's come up with things over the years. I mean, I understand the well could run dry. You can also make mistakes and you could have a downtime, and hopefully that's not happening with the Yankees now. But a coach can only take a team so far, like Tom Thibodeau, the coach of the Knicks. He's maximized their talent this year. But I'm going to tell you, he's got to get the players, to be on a championship level. And the best situation is for GM and coach to work hand in hand, okay? Best situation. But if I had to say who was the more important out of the two, it's the guy getting the players and forming the team is a little more important than the guy managing / coaching the team.
Well, before you go, Doc, I want to counter that real quick. You're talking about Thibodeau coming to a terrible team and turning that around. Could any other coach have done that? We don't know. So you're talking about Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman worked under a guy named George Steinbrenner who would be willing to pay anything for anybody to get him over there. So is that Brian Cashman or is that George Steinbrenner?
Brian Cashman's latest moves after George Steinbrenner passed away, Mac.
What's that?
I just told you some of the moves he made, like Gio
I understand
Urshela.
that. I understand that. With all that talent, Jack, they haven't gone anywhere yet. So you're going to tell me that you can give all these great players and that's the most important thing? That's totally wrong. Listen. The Giants were on paper underdogs to the Patriots. The Patriots were supposed to smoke the Giants. What happened? They were out-coached. The Patriots had a better talented team than the Giants. I mean, you can only do so much as far as bringing things to the table, Jack. You have to have a guy down there that can execute what you have. I don't care who you bring in. I don't care to a point who the players are. You mentioned Billy Martin. A great example. You could go to Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. He doesn't have the greatest teams, but he's always up there in the playoffs.
Mike Tomlin has had talented teams. Let me tell you something right now. This goes for the three of us, okay? If we were forced to have one of these two jobs, Yankee manager, Yankee GM, we would be more successful as a Yankee manager. We're smart enough. We'd fill up lineup cards. We talk to the pitching coaches to get proper rest. But if we were asked to be GMs, I mean, no offense, Doc, to you or Mac, but we would be struggling, as far as getting players off other teams and figuring it all out. It's harder to be a GM, get the right idea.
Oh my God, Jack! You're talking totally opposite. The GM has nothing to do with running the team once it's picked. If the GM is filling out cards for a lineup, then you don't need that coach, Jack.
Aaron Boone and Louis Rojas are doing what the GMs want. In this day and age, especially in baseball, it's follow the GM or get fired unless you're Tony La Russa.
You just made my point, Jack. Exactly why the Yankees aren't going anywhere. Exactly why. Because right now Joe Girardi is on a team and he's three times the manager of Aaron Boone, and the Phillies have a better shot at going to World Series than
Wait. The Phillies didn't make the playoffs last year under Girardi. For what? It's early in the season.
What do you think a coach does? Goes in there and turns a team around in 1 year? Is that what you think? You really believe that a coach goes to a team that is set up and turns the team and turns them into a World Series champion the first year? Do you really believe that?
It's happened.
Yeah, name one.
I'll give you one.
Joe Torre.
Okay, another one. Dick Williams coached the Oakland Athletics to the World Championship, managed in the 72 and 73 season. He would argue with Charlie Finley and left at the end of the 73 season. They brought in Alvin Dark, and they won the first year in 74. In 83, the Orioles won the World Series after Earl Weaver left in 82. Joe Altobelli was the manager.
I said turn around. Jack, I said turn around a team. You just gave me examples of teams that were World Series, and another coach went in and brought them to the World Series again.
They don't win World Series in first years turning a team around. That doesn't happen in first year.
Exactly, Jack. So you're giving me, I said, give me an example of a coach that goes to a bad team, Doc, and the Yankees were far from a bad team, and go in and end up in the World Series the next year. Give me one example.
I don't know if I can.
Mac, that's a bad example you're giving. When teams are bad, they make a leap in a big improvement, and it comes over a period normally of 2-3 years.
Right.
They make the leap. A team that's 3-13 in football is not going to win the Super Bowl the next year. They might go 9-7, then 11-5, and then win it the following year. Like the Dallas Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson. The first year under Jimmy Johnson, they were 1-15. Then they were 7-9. Then they were 11-5, and then they won the Super Bowl under him in the 4th and 5th years.
Of course, you to build a new team, to just turn the culture around, doesn't mean getting players, Jack. That doesn't do nothing for the team. All that does is give you other people to try to mend together. To build a culture of a team takes going through. Getting players believing in the system.
There you go again, Mac. You're hogging the microphone, not letting Doc get a word in, Mac. You're not letting him get one word in. He's sitting like a gentleman patiently while you're going on and on. repetition is good for conditioning to get someone in shape or learning a skill. Not in this case.
Well, Doc will have plenty of time to talk, and unlike you, I don't cut him off, Jack. Go ahead, Doc.
All right, so here we go. I believe it's a circular argument because you can have the greatest manager with a lousy team, and that manager is probably not going to win all that often. Here's an example. Casey Stengel, in his first 9 years as a manager, he had lousy teams, and he never managed above 5th place. Then he comes to the Yankees, and he's a great manager. We talked about Casey Stengel. Joe Torre is a similar type of thing. You look at, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Billy Martin. Billy Martin did a great job getting the Yankees and every team really good. But then Billy Martin always self-destructed. And then Billy Martin in the 1978 season was fired, and his team, Billy Martin's team, was doing very poorly. Then they brought in a new manager who basically the idea was he just sat down and wrote the lineups. That was Bob Lemon. And it was the players who then were able to turn it around under a different manager who managed a different way by really just leaving them alone, who then obviously went on to win the World Series. Bob Lemon would not have won a World Series with a different squad, with different players. Those players had to be on that team, so those players had to be brought in by a GM. Joe Torre became successful because the GM, Gene Michael, had assembled a great team that Joe Torre could then manage. So I think there are examples of managers who are great managers who get the most out of their talent. I think Joe Girardi was a great example of that. Joe Girardi's teams, when he managed the Yankees after that 2009 World Series, in those early teens, the 2013 Yankees, 2014, 2015, those were not great teams, but Joe Girardi had a way to make those teams overperform. Similarly, I believe, and I think a lot of people agree here, is that Aaron Boone, and again, he's won 100 games, 2 different seasons, but in the big moments, he does seem to get outmanaged, and the Yankees don't seem to have that level of hustle, and they don't seem to have that fire underneath them, and they don't seem to play fundamentally great baseball. And I think an argument could be made that if the Yankees don't win a World Series this year and next year, that maybe hiring Aaron Boone was a bad decision. It was not the manager for this team, and he wasn't able to get the most out of the talent. And so I think it really is situational. Sometimes I don't think a great manager is going to win with a bad team, and I don't think a bad team is going to be able to win with a great manager. I think you need both. And so but I think if you had to pick one or the other, you need the players. And I'm going to disagree with Jack on this. I think if the Yankees made me the GM, I am available, but only in the evenings because I'm a school principal. But if the Yankees made me the GM, I think I could be successful. I think I could manage myself in a executive situation, dealing with other baseball executives once I learned the nuances of being a baseball executive. But I think in that world, people would accept me. They say, okay, this guy's an executive of the Yankees. I think, and I'd love to say that I could manage the Yankees. I think if you put me in the dugout, the players would laugh at me. They'd say, this guy's never played baseball. He's not a professional. He doesn't know what it's like to play at a high level. And I wouldn't have any credibility, and they wouldn't give me any, I'd be laughed out of the dugout.
Can I say, because Doc used himself as an example, made good points. Let me use myself as a real life example. I coached in high school. Believe it or not, I coached the junior varsity basketball team in 1987, Lincoln High School, the same school of the movie He Got Game. I coached at JV. I couldn't hold on to the job more than 1 year because I was working in Manhattan full time, and understandably, the principal said you have to come earlier for the next season because the commute from Manhattan into Brooklyn. The players were waiting around for me, and that wasn't acceptable to do for a second season. When I went to Lincoln, they gave me the team to coach over there. Stacked team of talent, famous Lincoln High School. I went from being an average coach to a genius that year. Undefeated season, like Coach of the Year candidate on a JV level. Wow, he really knows his stuff. All I did was send them out there, basic plays. When they would be pressing, they would get steals. They would outplay my coaching because they were so quick, so athletic. So that was a case the team I was given assembled for me. It really wasn't my coaching, Listen, I had a calm effect on the team. I contributed. I understand that. But yeah, I was given the players. I mean,
No,
after that, I wasn't quite the same coach. The things I tried to incorporate, the players weren't as successful in doing.
I have a similar story that same idea. I was coaching soccer. It was rec soccer, and the rec director called me up and he said, "You got a new player." He met us at the field, so I had never seen this kid before. And he, the coach who I was coaching with, we looked at him and we said, "All right, what position do you want to play?" He said, "Center forward." We said, "All right, go." So he goes out there, center forward. First kick of the game, he dribbles up the field, scores a goal. And I looked at my coach, my partner, and I said, "That's great coaching. It had nothing to do with us."
Well,
we were given the talent.
Well, you guys are talking about high school, and there's no comparison to the pros because, of course, the pros are all supposed to be professional, and talent-wise, they're supposed to be the best of the best. So I kind of cringe when people say it's a bad team. There's a reason why it's a bad team, guys. These guys are all getting paid and supposed to be the best in the country at playing that sport. So it's not like you have a kid that's just out better than the other team because they're not as athletic as him. They're all supposed to be athletic. They're all supposed to be professional. They're all supposed to be good hitters, good fielders, good football players. They're all supposed to be the best of the best. So bringing back high school stuff is totally apples and oranges because you're saying you got more athletic kids than another team that has less athletic kids. That's not the way it is in professional sports, guys. Professional sports, you've got the best college players or best farm system players in the country coming up and playing against each other. This is where coaching matters because if you think about it and if you think about the scenario, these are supposed to be all the best. So how do you win if you're not coached up? And that's all I got to say on that. There you go. Oh, silence. I love it.
Well, you won the argument.
Well, I don't know if I won the argument
or we just got tired.
I guess I outlasted you is probably the best thing there. So, guys, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, Jack's going to start us off with, to me, is a very important subject to me because of my dealings in youth sports. Are traveling teams good for kids? And what we mean by that is like a traveling soccer team or a traveling hockey team or baseball team where all year round they're playing one sport. And we'll see what Jack has to say about it, what I have to say about it, and what Doc can shoot me down on what I say about it. So we'll see what's going on next, guys.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. www.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids
Anything
try to
you can
save
do,
some.
I can do.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. This is our Saturday debate show. Every Saturday, me and Jack get together with our special guest host, I would say, Dr. Paul Semendinger, who provides us with a lot of information in history. And, Jack, you know, I was thinking that you go first next, but, you know, we never have Doc go first. You know what I mean? I know he's got opinions on it. He knows the topics. So, as far as a traveling team, is it good for kids? Why don't we let Doc go first, and then we can sit back and we can throw rocks at him too?
You're looking to counter him. That's good. You were looking for ways to make Doc look bad. Let him expose himself out there first with his answers, and then counter.
Yeah, because I mean, Doc has an unfair advantage when he can sit back and listen to arguments and say, "Oh my God, that's terrible." You know what I mean? So let's see how Doc.
We could look foolish first, and then anything he says, he can't look bad going after.
Right, exactly. So,
just so you know, that was in the contract we signed that I would always go last so that I wouldn't look foolish. That was a big contract. Remember, we signed it. It was on page 73, buried in the con.
You didn't see the small print. All contracts are subject to change at any time. So,
all right. So here we go. I'll go first. I think this actually goes back to our conversation just before the break. I think travel sports can be good for kids if the program is a quality program that's designed on helping kids grow as individuals and as athletes and as people. I think the problem with travel sports comes when the focus becomes just winning, trying to maximize what you can get out of each kid at each moment. And when they overuse kids for the purpose, again, of trying to win or build a program or things like that. And I'm thinking specifically of sports like football when you have kids playing hurt, or in baseball and you overpitch a kid and he throws too many innings and he hurts his arm. And then, you know, you're playing with a kid's future. I have seen, and I've seen it many, many times, where the year-round sports actually does bad things or is a detriment to certain kids in a number of different ways. The old way of a kid playing football, then basketball, then baseball, or whatever version of those sports or whatever other sports, but different sports throughout the year. I've heard people talk about, and these are athletic people, and these are people in the fitness industry, talk about how those kids actually became more fit and better rounded and suffered fewer injuries because they were building their entire body by using different muscle groups and different skill sets throughout the year. If you're playing the same sport throughout the entire year, you're actually then taxing those same muscles the same way all the time. I also have seen instances where kids burn out of a sport, where they think it's the greatest thing in the world until they get to the point where they've just had enough. And I do know of an instance where there was a state champion soccer team that had an outstanding player who had been playing year-round soccer. And during the season, he just said, you know what? I just don't want to play soccer anymore. And he left a championship team, and he was a starter just because it was too much. It was enough of it. And I know somebody who swam competitively, at the collegiate level, throughout, and even, went to the finals for the Olympics or whatever, the trials, and refuses to even go near a pool because the swimming was just too much. Like, that's the whole life to a certain point becomes swimming, and then after a while you say, you know what, I can't even stand it anymore. So I think within reason, if it's a reasonable program and the purpose is the right purpose, travel sports can be good. Unfortunately, I also see far too often that the stress isn't on the fundamentals and developing kids. It's really just on building a program or the coach's reputation, or the coach wants to be a winner. And if that's the case and they burn kids out and it's all about the coach and it's not about the kids, then it's not a good thing.
So what do you think, Jack?
Doc mentions a great point. Irresponsible adults ruin the whole thing. I'm going under the assumption that the adults are going to be responsible and do things the right way, because if they don't, then it's a fiasco. It shouldn't take place. But I think a traveling team is a good thing for students. It's basically home study on the road. That's what it is. And if you have a young person with a tremendous ability to excel, it could be in sports, it could be as a singer, it could be as an actor, actress, and they deserve an opportunity to expand on those skills. And a lot of these students come from deprived environments, okay? Deprived, let's say, economic environments. And this is an opportunity for them to do a bit of traveling, no pun intended, with our traveling teams, see other cities, get to interact with other students, other cultures. Maybe some of these traveling teams go out of the country. What a great thing to go out of the country and meet other young people of different cultures. And those are memories of a lifetime. I sometimes speak to adults who are involved with sport teams, who traveled, and they remember that much more vividly than they do being in the classroom here. Obviously, school is extremely, extremely important, here. And even missing so much as one day, students are told sometimes not to. Listen, I was never on a traveling team. The biggest extent of my traveling was taking a day off from high school to see the Miracle Mets play, in the World Series. And can I tell you something? My memory of Tommy Agee's 2 catches, hitting a home run, Nolan Ryan coming in out of the bullpen, I remember that vividly. I wouldn't have remembered what I did in school all the way back then. The exposure to other people and cultures are great, and they get to mature. A lot of these young people who get to go on these traveling teams, it helps their maturity level as long as it's under the supervision of responsible adults, okay? I can't stress that enough, as Doc mentioned, because if an adult in charge isn't responsible, it could work backwards. It could be a terrible thing. And let me say another thing about a traveling team. I think these students have to earn it. It's not just a skill. They have to exhibit as a lead up to that they are making the effort to be mature in the classroom. and academically that they're trying their very hardest and showing some progress to be able to handle it, because it is a big commitment to be on a traveling team for a student, and they have to show an ability to stay focused all along. I think it's a good thing, unless Doc mentions, for one sport, the injury factor becomes less because you're training specifically for that sport. And I'll close and say for the third time, it has to be under the supervision of responsible adults.
Well, I'm going to take a different angle, guys. As people following know, and Jack knows, and I think Doc knows, I coached for years, and I coached mainly football. I did coach baseball a little bit. And I totally disagree with the traveling team, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because of the parents of the kids, and I've seen way too many examples of parents living through their kids, and they think that these kids are going to be all professional baseball players, soccer players, and stuff like this, when the percentages against that happening are so slim that it's almost like a lottery win, guys. To get a scholarship in a certain sport, only 3% of high school players get a scholarship to go to college in any sport. And only 2% of the best college players get to go professional. And what I've seen personally is that when they do this, they say, oh, Johnny's going to be an all-star Derek Jeter, or this guy's going to be the next Mike Trout. So they put these kids in this position. And whether the kids love the sport or not is beside the point. Because what you're telling this kid is he has no option, that no other sport really matters to him, when each sport not only builds different muscle groups, as Doc mentioned, but also has different lessons in life, because that's really what youth sports is about. It's not exactly about the sport. It's competing in that sport. And what you have to do to compete, you have to learn how to lose and rebound. You have to learn how to win right. You have to learn how to be a team player. You have to learn how to overcome your fears, how to build confidence in yourself. And these things are more important in life than whether you hit a home run or you run for a touchdown. This is what youth sports has always meant to me. And if you look, guys, if you look at these players that are Hall of Famers, that are great in one sport, they all play different sports. Jim Brown didn't just play football. Mike Trout didn't just play baseball. He played all sports. And they had letters in every high school sport they played, because they were athletes. They had a choice of where they wanted to go. Deion Sanders, he played both. He was good at both, right? Hall of Fame defensive back. Bo Jackson, when he was healthy, unbelievable baseball player, one of the best running backs in the league. You know, Jim Brown was better at lacrosse, supposedly, than football. Also ran track. There's lessons to be learned in every sport. And what happens, and I've seen it more times than I like, guys, is that the parents live through their kids. I know it because when you sit them down and you pull them for another player, even if you're winning, they're like, why did you pull my son? Or why did you take out my daughter? Because they live through their children. They don't say, hey, pick what you like and we'll see. They either say you're not going to play because of this, or you're going to play this because of this. And that's totally wrong when it comes to youth sports. I'm talking about kids, guys, that are 8 years old. I'm not even talking about high school kids. I'm talking about kids that are on traveling soccer teams when they're 7, 8 years old, going from different place to different place. Not only is it expensive to do this with the parents and the family, it puts a burden on them. It shows the kids the wrong example. When we were growing up, guys, right, we rode bikes around, right? We were playing tag out in the yard. You saw bikes everywhere. Kids were physically fit just because of what they did. Not even playing sports. Today, you don't see that. They're all in front of a screen somewhere, like me and you are right now. This is what they do. They don't even play tag. So if you're going to take a kid and you're going to put him in one sport, you have denied him knowledge. You have denied him opportunity to not only experience what it is to be a wrestler or what it is to be, a track and field guy. You're saying to him, this is your only choice. And you're not, and to me, that's almost punishing a kid, And I really disagree with traveling sports a lot, guys. So that's my opinion on it.
I agree with you. And again, I think what I said in the beginning was it's all about the purpose, right? And if the purpose is to try to make kids into future scholarships or future professionals, you're setting kids up for failure because, as you said, 99%, 98% of those kids aren't going to ever achieve at any of that. And I agree. As a dad myself, my kids, we didn't do travel sports because we didn't want to put the burden on the family that you had to go to tournaments at certain times and all that kind of stuff. And we played and I coached all the sports, baseball, soccer, basketball, year after year. And we gave the kids the opportunity to play all those things and do all other things too, Boy Scouts and, the act in the school play and all the other things. We wanted them to have a well-rounded experience growing up so that they weren't locked into you're just a soccer player, or you're just a baseball player, or whatever it might be.
But it gets to a certain point where you have to transition kids from participation into a more competitive environment. When in the elementary school, you try to play kids as equally as you can, but once they get into high school and they sign up for varsity team, it's not that the time isn't getting split equally anymore. It's like who performs better, plays more, because now you're getting more into the real world. You're getting towards adulthood. I mean, when I coached JV baseball, okay, there was one kid that went hitless a game. He committed a couple of errors in the outfield that cost us the game. And I sat him down for the next game. He just wasn't playing well in the lead up over a few games. And the parent talked to me, and the philosophy was, well, all kids should be played equally by given a chance. And it's something I would have liked to have done, but when now I was trying to explain in a more competitive environment, so when he gets the opportunity, he's got to produce. I mean, once you get into the high school level.
Right. But that's not travel sports, right? I would agree with that.
That's not travel sports. But with travel sports, I'm talking about the intangible. Where you're traveling to, if you're just traveling from Manhattan to the Bronx, that to me isn't quite traveling sports. But if you're getting to travel to California, I mean, where some of these kids are never going to see California in their life. I mean, some of them come from economically deprived environments. It's a big thing to them, especially if any kid could go out of the country. What a great thing that would be to meet a kid from England, Korea, Japan, or wherever the heck the country is. It's a great thing, and the memories they're going to take out of the traveling team. My concern with the traveling team is this: they might lose focus on the academics. The supervision might not be quite as tight as it would be if they stayed close to home. So it's got to be with kids who can handle a traveling team and handle it emotionally as well. They can't be given too much free time where they could get into any type of trouble too. So the supervision, I believe, has to be really tight with the traveling teams.
Yeah, I just think, Jack, that what you're doing, and if there's student exchange programs, there's camps they can go to. I mean, there's so many different programs you could do to have them go see other places. And to me, a traveling team isn't made for that. A traveling team is supposed to be that you're playing this sport year round because for some reason or another, they think they're going to be better than if they do that if they play football and baseball, say. And that's just not true. That's not true. It's proven it's not true. Most athletes that become professional athletes in one sport have played more than one sport. And Mike Golick, who was an NFL football player, a defensive lineman on a great Eagles team, got a scholarship for wrestling, Jack. Not only football, but for wrestling. He did more than just play football, even though he's a professional football player. Mike Trout, Deion Sanders. I mean, I can go on and on with all the players that lettered in all their high school sports. They weren't on traveling teams, Jack. They got a well-balanced, a well-educated mind about sports and what it took to play sports, period. What it takes to play football is not the same as what it takes to play baseball and vice versa. But this is where I think the traveling teams go wrong. Because what you're saying to the kid, again, I don't care if they go to England or they go down the street. You're saying to the kid, you're good in baseball, but you're not that good in other sports. You're making that decision for that kid, which I think is totally wrong because you're not letting him learn
They
about.
do play other sports, a lot of kids. When I coach basketball, I encourage the players to try out for the volleyball team that I also coached. That was a motivation. And they loved like spiking the ball. That was their equivalent of dunking the ball. They loved it. Some of these kids never played volleyball before, but they were enjoying it. Kids enjoy other sports. You give them a baseball glove. A kid who never played baseball before, they love the challenge of hitting the ball, you know, having a glove, being out on the field. No one's discouraging them from that. But logically speaking, if they're on a traveling team, they can't do anything else besides have a little recreation if there's a ping pong or pool table. And I'm only talking traveling teams for the elite, the ones with potential to maybe play college, in college or whatever.
What makes them elite? We're talking about traveling team at 7 years old. What makes this 7-year-old or this 14-year-old elite?
Well, 7 years old, that's young. 7 years old should be a traveling team. I mean, not at that age. Mac, I'm thinking more the high school level. That's what I'm thinking a little more.
Go high school then. Go high school then. What happens? This kid goes on this and does this 365 days a year, all year long, and he doesn't get a scholarship. Then what?
It's not 360. You want to know something? That's like telling someone plays minor league baseball. Most guys don't go to the major leagues. A ton of them play minor league baseball. That's like he was given his opportunity. He gave it his shot, and it's not a bad experience. He's going to get his diploma. Listen. And he has an increased chance of going and playing at a college somewhere, either on a scholarship or not on a scholarship.
I don't think so.
And it's not going to affect his education in the long run.
Let me give you a thing I just read today, Jack. Right? Most, and this has to do with traveling teams also. Most kids quit sports by the age of 13 years old. Isn't that something? The majority of the kids today at 13 years old are quitting playing sports. And I'm going to tell you, it has not just the sports alone. It has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with people being online more and not being interested. I'm telling you right now, Jack, that to take a kid, I don't care if he's 18 years old.
Mac, we're in a pandemic. Everything is held up. That's not an accurate thing right now. And let me tell you, that's not true, that study you read. You want to know why? Because I bet a lot of those so-called kids who quit are going to bowl. They're going to ski. They're going to play basketball with your friends in the park. They're going to play touch football. They might join a weekend softball league. They're participating, maybe not on an official competitive level, but they're still participating.
Well, then to me, that is not a sport. That's more recreation, Jack. So I'm just saying, so it's tag. If you want to say that, then you can say tag's a sport too. It's not. It's a recreational thing. So I just seen way too much growing up coaching in my years coaching, where you take somebody out of or make a kid who, and you can even say a high school level and say you only are going to play this sport. I think you're taking a lot away from them, guys, especially all the lessons that sports teaches you, all the different lessons. So the next one we're getting on to, guys, is should a highly drafted quarterback, a rookie quarterback, start in the first season? And Jack, this time you do go first.
The answer is yes. You mainly learn through playing. It's holding a clipboard. I can understand the logic. Well, you want to learn from someone else. Well, if the guy ahead of you is so good to learn from, why are you replacing him? It's not a healthy situation. You're holding the clipboard, and the guy on the field knows at any time he could be taken out because you were brought in to replace him. There have been cases, I understand, examples you could give where the guy holding the clipboard for a year, so he'd come in later, he'd be successful. I mean, you turn to Patrick Mahomes. He sat 1 year for Alex Smith. But what would have been the difference? All that did was hold back Patrick Mahomes an extra year. Aaron Rodgers was 3 years behind Brett Favre. He sat behind him. Brett Favre didn't help Aaron Rodgers at all. They weren't close. It wasted 3 years of Aaron Rodgers' career. I understand Eli Manning didn't start the season. Kurt Warner did for the Giants, and then Eli Manning replaced him. He didn't need that. The only possible exception, if your offensive line is so atrocious, so terrible, that you're trying to protect the quarterback to an extent until you can get the right players to block for him. Look at the best example I'm going to give is Justin Herbert. He came up the 6th overall pick a year ago for the LA Chargers. The coach, Anthony Lynn, said Justin Herbert's going to sit the year and play behind Tyrod Taylor, who's no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor, who's probably going to start at quarterback for the Houston Texans this year, unless the Deshaun Watson situation is straightened out, one way or the other with the NFL. But Tyrod Taylor was supposed to be the starter. But because a doctor blundered inexcusably and gave Tyrod Taylor a faulty shot, Tyrod Taylor had to sit out. Justin Herbert was rushed in. They had no choice, correct, but to start Justin Herbert. It was an emergency right before the game. Justin Herbert played the whole year. He had a great season. He might be on his way to the Hall of Fame. He took his first step, at least, towards that. Justin Herbert wouldn't have even seen the darn field had they gone according to plan, had him hold the clipboard. Guys learn through playing. There's no better way. And the 49ers are making the mistake this year in the draft. They moved up to go to number 3 overall. They're going to draft a quarterback, whoever it might be. But they say Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play. He's going to be their starter. Well, are the guys good enough or not? Okay? And no substitute for playing. I understand all the wisdom you can gain watching and learning from someone. I don't discount that, but it should never come at the expense of playing. Highly drafted quarterbacks should start immediately. Otherwise, they shouldn't be highly drafted quarterbacks.
What do you think, Doc?
This I was looking up, trying to see if I could find any examples of a highly drafted quarterback who started. The examples that Jack was giving, I think the most obvious is Aaron Rodgers sitting a number of years behind Brett Favre and things like that. I couldn't come up with it quickly enough. I don't have a problem. I think the Jets are going to have to do that, right? They traded Darnold, and now they're going to probably draft a quarterback with their second pick, with the first pick, which is the second pick or whatever. I would imagine that person's going to start and become part of, hopefully, a system that really works. But on the other hand, I think football is such an intellectual game with so many plays and so many situations and so many different levels of understanding that it does make sense for a quarterback most often to learn the system and to understand how the system works. I don't have a problem with a first year quarterback playing, but I don't think I'm qualified enough in the history of the NFL to be able to say that this guy did that and it proved to be a good thing, or that guy did it and it proved to be a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, Jack has a point. To a point. I would say 99% of the times a highly drafted rookie quarterback should not start. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, he's getting drafted that high normally because he's going to a terrible team. And a terrible team normally means that they don't have the blocking or the players in place or the coaching that makes that team a little better. So normally the lowest, like in the example of Burrows, right? He got hurt. He was playing well as a rookie. They weren't winning, but he was playing well. He gets hurt. Tua, they brought him in to kind of play some games, but they had to bail him out sometimes because of, for whatever reason. Patrick Mahomes did not start. He started the last game. The season was already wrapped up. In that case, I can see you playing them. I mean, I can see you play him if the season is all done and you're near the end of the year and you want to take a look at him, or if you're in place to make the playoffs and you want to see what the kid has. I don't see no problem with that. The biggest problem is that the most successful quarterbacks in the history were not starters. And the reason they weren't starters, wasn't because they weren't good enough. It was just because the coaches knew that to throw them in there could ruin them. There's been a lot of college quarterbacks, great college quarterbacks, that couldn't make it in the NFL because they got thrown in right away. And they're normally on bad teams, which I don't care how good you play a quarterback, you're going to get hit, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to lose games. And football is much a game about confidence in yourself and players as it is about your physical capabilities. And as the doc said, to read one play, all the options off that one play, there might be 5 or 6 options off that one play, not counting a playbook that's about as thick as an old phone book. I really believe that Aaron Rodgers benefited a lot by sitting behind Brett Favre. I think even if you go to Drew Brees, he sat behind Doug Flutie for a little while before he started. And these really helped. And we're talking quarterbacks that are Hall of Famers that are coming up through the ranks right now, if they're not probably first ballot Hall of Famers. Brady got pushed into it because Bledsoe got hurt. But Brady was on a good team. Brady was drafted 6th because the Patriots were at the Super Bowl.
He wasn't highly drafted. We're talking about highly drafted.
I know that, Jack. I'm just making a point that as a rookie, he started because of an injury. That's all I'm saying. And the reason why he wasn't highly drafted because he was drafted by a good team, and they didn't have a pick that was supposedly fit for what he was. But again, to me, Herbert, yeah, he played well, but Chargers didn't, go to the playoffs or anything. To me, football is a game you can learn from practice. You can learn from the film rooms. You can learn from everybody else. Jackson learned, from Flacco. Mahomes learned from Smith. These quarterbacks have got to be just as smart as they are physical and talented, and that's why I think they should at least get 1 year on the bench before they start.
I'm just going to counter quickly. I question how much they really learned. Do you really think Aaron Rodgers, had he started immediately, he would have been just as successful as he is now? I mean, he didn't have a relationship with Brett Favre, yet he stood for 3 years. Aaron Rodgers wasn't that highly drafted. He went late in the first round. So we should point that out. Do you honestly think Patrick Mahomes would not have been as successful if they started him the first year? I think they just put it off a year. I can understand what you're saying, how holding the clipboard, trying to soak in knowledge, but I just feel there's no substitute ever for playing. I know I said that, and that's why I feel if a guy's really going to be an elite quarterback, if he's really a guy, he'll take some lumps along the way. If his confidence is that fragile, it means he's not going to be that good in the long run. So it's good to find out, as soon as you can.
I don't know, Jack. I don't know about that. I think quarterbacks, especially a quarterback you're asking to run the whole offensive show, they need time to digest it. They need time to understand the speed of the game. They need time to have confidence, not in themselves, Jack, but the team. That's what I'm talking about. That's why we have a disagreement on, Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold's a bad quarterback. I think he's a decent quarterback. I don't know how good he is because we don't know. I think he's a talented quarterback on a bad team, and he has no confidence in the players around him, and he shouldn't because they don't protect him and they don't catch the ball when he throws it, and they can't run the ball, and the defense can't stop anybody. I think that if Sam Darnold came in behind an Aaron Rodgers or a Brett Favre or even a Doug Flutie, I think Sam Darnold will be on his way to being a great quarterback right now. I really believe that.
And if he came in behind those guys, he wouldn't get a chance to play. If you're going to sit behind someone, it's usually not going to be a top-level quarterback. I know that exception was Eli Manning, Kurt Warner, but Kurt Warner was thought to be past his peak. Listen, we could debate it on, and the coaches are split, too, in the NFL between you and I, the way they do that. So I guess there's no, resounding correct answer.
I agree with that because I think it's situational, as Doc has said in a lot of cases, but I'm just talking about overall what has been in the past. That's all. And look, at Dan Marino was a rookie quarterback. He went to the Super Bowl, right? So, I mean, there's examples all the way around, right? So, folks, we're going to take our last break for the show. We'll be right back after this. We got more debates coming up. We got Who's Better, which I love. And we'll be right up after these messages. So please stick around. Boom, 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 and boom.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. This is our Saturday debate show where me, Jack, and Dr. Paul Semendinger has now joined the debate. I love that. That's great, man. So I'm glad you all could join us today. A couple things of business. We're on Northeast Streaming Sports, where we have a bunch of shows over there, guys. Go over there and check it out on Facebook at N.E. Streaming Sports. That's with 2 capital S's in that, and you'll get our Facebook page. Our YouTube channel is up and running, so guys, check that out because it's a great YouTube channel again with all the shows on there. We're also on Zodiac TV, which is very exciting for us to be on there. We've had Carlos coming in, and he's given us a bunch of comments. I've not been able to get them all up, but Carlos is one of our loyal fans, and we love having him listening out there. And we appreciate all his comments. And just to let you know, Dr. Paul Semendinger has an outstanding blog called Start Spreading the News. If you get a chance, go check it out. I'm telling you right now, guys, if you do love the Yankees or baseball in general, because he has baseball updates on there also, check it out. It has more information there that you can handle. I mean, it's great. It has everything going on there. They got different segments for all parts of the day. So
and like you, Mac, he hasn't given up on the Yankees. After saying a week ago they're winning the World Series, now they're not making the playoffs even, according to you. But Doc is sticking with them a bit longer than you are.
Well, that's out of context as it normally is, Jack. I said who had a better shot at going to the World Series this year, and that's who had a better chance, the Mets or the Yankees, and I picked the Yankees. Because to me, the Mets have a couple of years to go. The Yankees got the horses; they just don't know how to ride them yet. I guess is the best terminology I can use with that. So, folks, we've been having our debates, and we're going to continue with our debate. The next debate, I have to say, as I arrange my papers here, that's coming up. If I'm correct, and again, I'm a mess over here, guys. I got notes all over the place. I'm old school. I love to go ahead and use paper instead of the computer because the computer distracts me while I'm doing the show. So, we got a debate question. How long should it take a new coach to get a team turned around? And what I mean by getting a team turned around, I'm not talking about a playoff team or a team that's, at 500 where all they got to do is maybe pick up a couple players or they have to maybe, tweak the system. I'm talking about actually turn a team around from a loser into a winner. And to me, that takes 3 to 4 years. When you take over a team that's really bad, it's different levels of things that you got to do, right? You've got to get a coaching staff first that works with you, that the base strategy you got. And believe it or not, every coach has a basic plan of their team, whether they're going to be fast and throwing the ball or physical and have a good defense and a running game. Believe it or not, they still want to do that, some coaches. And after you get the right coaches that you think are right anyway, then you got to get your team to buy into that. You got to evaluate last year's players to make sure you want to keep them, or if they can fit into your new system or strategy that you want to run. And that takes all off season to do. So you're constantly evaluating the past players. And then comes free agency. And hopefully if you're working with the GM and you got your strategy and you tell the GM this is what you want to do, you want to pick up players that would benefit you from playing in that system that you have there. Then comes the communication, finding leaders for your teams. What guys are given the extra that are natural leaders? And believe it or not, guys, who's good followers? Because you can't have a team full of leaders because then you're not going to get nothing done. You got to be aware of distractions. You got to be able to, when you're in a game or practice, you got to organize the practices and certain drills that you want to use to get that system going. After you get the system up and running, you got to get the players to believe in that system, or else you're going to have to get rid of them. So you're constantly evaluating not only the players, but yourself and the coaching staff. When it comes game time, then you got to be able to manage the game right. And you got to make sure that the players during the game under the lights and the coaches are doing the right thing. And then on top of all that, you might have to manage the equipment manager. You might have to manage the water boy to make sure he's getting the waters out to the player. You are the last, and you're the person that they're going to come to if any of these things don't work. There are great offensive coordinators that come in and can't be a head coach because they're used to doing just one thing. As a head coach, you got to supervise all these things when they're happening. And during the game, some decisions, you got to know whether you should take charge or let your coaches make that decision. And sometimes if the coaches make the wrong decisions, of course it reflects on you because you have the last say. Time management, when to call a timeout, when to call a trick play, when to make an adjustment at halftime, what adjustments you got to make to beat a particular team. Just to get competitive, just to have this new system come in, it takes a couple years just to get the right players and the right coaches. And you have to either keep them or get rid of them. And then it takes...
Mac, answer the question. How many years should a coach or manager be given to turn something around? You're talking all this philosophical stuff. I'm getting bored listening to it.
Jack,
Come on, give me a number.
If you were listening in the beginning, Jack, which you don't, listen. I said 3 to 4 years, but of course you don't listen. You love my philosophies, Jack. You listen more intently to that. What I'm saying, guys, is to actually turn a bad team into a good team takes at least 3 to 4 years. Is there patience for that today? I don't know. I don't think so. But I'm going to tell you right now, the best teams out there have coaches that have been there for more than 3 years or 4 years. Those are the best teams. You're talking the Steelers. You're talking the Ravens. You're talking the Kansas City Chiefs. You're talking about the New Orleans Saints. These are coaches that have been there for a while. It's not the teams like the Jets who change head coaches all the time. It's not the teams like the the Jaguars who change coaches all the time. These are established programs because they got a system, and they bring players in to fulfill that system. And that's why it takes that long.
You know what you always used to hate? I hated this from the time I was a kid. These managers, coaches, they come in, they have a 5-year plan. I hate that. I always hated it. If I was in charge of an organization and I'm interviewing someone for manager's job, and he comes in and tells me he has a 5-year plan, my interview with him's essentially over. He's not getting the job. In this day and age, it's a win now mentality. I understand with certain teams, with the personnel, it's gonna take some time. A perfect example could be the Miami Marlins when they tore the team up. It's not going to quite be a win now mentality, that it's going to take a little time, but I've got to see progress. I don't want to hear that a team is a chronic lose after 3 years. Well, we have a 5-year plan. It's moving in the right direction. Wins and losses show me that it's moving in the right direction. A player's being developed and truly improving. That shows me that, because the 5-year plan means that at the 5th year of the 5-year plan, they're finally showing a little improvement, and the manager's going to say, you see, I told you the 5-year plan is working. That's an excuse to lose for a few years. So I don't want to hear the 5-year plan. I'll give the manager coach 1 year where it's a mess, but by the 2nd year, I got to see improvement. I truly got to see that we're moving in the right direction. Unless, of course, he's been dealt such a bad hand, such bad personnel, or there have been so many injuries that there's a viable excuse to give him a pass for another year. Now, I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to fire him. We both, Mac, like to use Bill Parcells as an example. He had a lousy first year as a coach, but he took the initiative. He went to the GM, George Young. He said, I did it the wrong way. I got too friendly with the players. I'm going to do it differently the 2nd year. That impresses me. You do that, now I'm watching you and saying, okay, you're going to do it a different way. I like that. Let's see how it's going to be. I got to see a little improvement all along, genuine improvement. So I feel like 2 years is enough to justify if the team's truly not improving. The guy's been given enough time. Improvement doesn't always come in wins and losses. It's the culture being set for an organization, to see are they on the right track, if they stabilize. That's just me. We're in a win now mentality in sports I'm talking about, that I can't give a guy like a few years to continuously lose without at least seeing, improvement in the players and having a vision. Are we really getting to where we want to get to? 2 years.
Go ahead, Doc.
All right, I think I'm going to go more with Mac on this one. I think again, I'm not a big Jets fan. I'm not a big football guy. I don't know it as well as you guys and most people, but I think the Jets nailed it now with their head coach. And I think you're going to see this guy get a number of years in order to build this program, because it just seems like everything is clicking, and there's a plan and there's a vision for the future. Adam Gase, I didn't see that. And the team bumbled along under him. and the team has bumbled along with the Jets under a lot of different coaches. And I think when you see a team that's doing terribly and the coach doesn't seem to have a grasp on the whole thing, I'm with Jack on that, where you get rid of him after 2 years. But if you have a solid coach and he seems to have a plan, and that plan seems to be coming to fruition, and you're seeing improvement, you're seeing better results on the field, even if they don't translate to wins and losses. In order to have a program truly grow, I think it's going to take 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, wait, Doc, when you said you agreed with Mac, basically, you meant you agree with me because you just repeated what I said. Adam Gase was there 2 years.
No, I'm saying by and large, you got to buy into the guy and give him a long enough time to have his vision work through. Sort of like Buck Showalter with the Yankees. You know, it took a number of years before those players started to really be the players and the team started to really reflect the coach. But if it's a disaster, I think Adam Gase was a disaster. I think you get rid of him quickly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, there's examples of rare things, and then there's examples of things that are more so. Jack talking about, 2 years. I said to turn a team around. I didn't say to make them a little bit more competitive. That's not the topic. I mean, what's more competitive? That they give up less points, that they score more points? I mean, there's so many different things you can look at. What I'm talking about is actually turn a team around. And for right now, Carlos, I think Saleh will be good. We'll find out. Listen, I think it takes a lot to turn a bad team around. It's years and years of a culture of players not wanting to come to that team. It's years and years of media bombarding the management and the owners, and they are trying to make decisions that a lot of times they're hasty in making. In other words, the Jets, one of the reasons why the Jets have been so bad for so long has to be because of changing head coaches all the time. You can't expect players to go from one system to another every year, to have new coaches every year, to have a different culture every year. Of course, Gase was a train wreck. We knew that after the first year. I mean, it was simple to see because you can just see the performance of the players giving up. And when players start giving up, then you know they have no faith in the coach or the system. They're just kind of out there getting a paycheck. So how do you judge that? You judge that, of course, the players have got to buy into it and you have to compete. That only makes sense. But to actually turn a team around, to go from a bad team to a team that is maybe 500, that takes a few years. I mean, it's just that simple because you're going up against other teams that are very good, that have great coaches in place, and that believe in their culture. You're asking these guys. I'll give you a great example. Harry Carson was drafted in 1976, if I'm correct. He was on a lot of bad Giant teams. It took Perkins a few years to get him to the playoffs. Perkins leaves. They name Parcells. Parcells goes backwards for a year, as Jack mentioned, and they only have 3 wins. Now, he did go to the owners and say, I'm going to change the way I do things. I'm going to be more myself, which makes sense. He's going to be less like a head coach and more like Bill Parcells. And I think every coach, every good coach, has their personality, and that personality comes onto the team if he's strong enough. Adam Gase had no personality. You could see that. But if you look at the Saints head coach, right? You look at him and you say, wow, that's his personality. The team reflects that. You look at the Ravens head coach. He's very physical. The team is very physical. The Pittsburgh Steelers coach, same thing. His personality comes over the team. And a good coach can get that culture to reflect him. As Bill Parcells said when he was coaching the Jets, he said, remember, you're an extension of me on that field. That's what he would tell them before they went on the field. And it meant that much to these players that they represented him, that they performed at that level. That's a good coach. And that's how you can tell the difference between a good coach and a bad coach. So,
and I think the Jets are going to stick with their coach for a number of years because it just seems to me, based upon the way he speaks, based upon the way the organization and even the writers and everyone seems to talk about him, it's a guy that everybody seems to have confidence in. And so he's probably going to get a longer leash to build this program the way that he envisions it. And hopefully for the Jets, good things happen as a result. But I think you're right. It's going to take a number of years because they're terrible.
Yeah.
Well, with the Jets, it's their GM Joe Douglas who's going to be under the microscope more than the coach.
I agree with that.
If the Jets, if they're not successful in the next year or two, good chance Joe Douglas is gone. And who knows what the new GM is going to do as far as a head coach goes. If he's given the authority, Robert Saleh might not last as head coach. I mean, it's very unpredictable. But Joe Douglas really, in this case, it's the GM. It's important they win for his sake.
I definitely agree with that, Jack. So let's get to one of my favorite segments in here, and that's called Who's Better? And this is where I asked the great Jack Hirsch and also now the great Dr. Paul Semendinger who they think is better between these people. So we're going to start out in their prime, guys. And this means all around, so it may give one of them an edge. Yogi Berra or Mike Piazza?
They're different eras, guys. I mean, Mike Piazza, you could argue, is the greatest hitting catcher of all time. And I could say he's the worst defensive Hall of Famer of all time, too. I mean, I'm going to go with Yogi because he was an excellent defensive catcher, and his hitting mirrored Piazza's. I don't think Piazza was that much of a better hitter. He was a better hitter than Yogi, but not substantially. But I think the difference in defense, Yogi was miles ahead of him for that. So give me Yogi Berra, but I can understand someone picking Piazza. I certainly couldn't argue with that.
I go Yogi, 100%, 3 MVPs. Again, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think Yogi almost isn't remembered for the great player that he was at the time as the fact that he won all those MVPs. He was the heart and soul of that Yankee team. I think in memory, he's eclipsed by DiMaggio and Ford and Mantle and Maris at the end or whatever. I think the heart of those teams was Yogi. So, Yogi.
But can I tell you something? Yogi was the ultimate bad ball hitter. If he was playing in this era, the way they magnify replays with the strike zone, the media would have been all over Yogi for swinging at bad pitches. Anytime Yogi was in the slightest slump and the Yankees weren't winning, that would have been brought up.
Definitely. So you both pick Yogi. I kind of go along with you, but Piazza was an outstanding hitting catcher. There's no doubt about it. The better mascot, the Mets mascot or the Phillies mascot, guys? Who's better?
I'm going to go with the Philly mascot only because of the sympathy factor with those Philly fans. I hear they throw things at the mascot. They abuse the mascot. I think the Met fans are a little nicer to their mascot than the Philly ones are to them. So the Philly one gets my sympathy vote.
I think my kids would have picked the Philly fanatic, but I don't know. And I'm not a Mets fan. I've always liked Mr. Met. I just think it's funny. So I'm going to go with Mr. Met.
Okay.
How come they don't do the banners anymore? Like in the old days, they had banner days where the fans could be on the field. Bring that back. That would be fun. Allow the fans to circle the field with the best banners.
Yeah, that would be very cool to do something. I don't know. Baseball has been making a lot of mistakes lately, Jack. So that's just one of many. Let's see. A great DH or a great relief pitcher? Which one is better?
Oh, not even close. A great relief pitcher is always more valuable. You could get anyone to DH. You could 162 games. You could get 162 different DHs. And they'll get the job done. Listen, David Ortiz is an exception. Unfortunately, with the Yankees, they're stuck in that position with Giancarlo Stanton. Let me say something quickly. That was great hitting by Giancarlo Stanton yesterday, going to the opposite field and hitting a ground ball and knocking in 2 runs. Great situational hitting. He impressed me yesterday. But give me Mariano Rivera over a David Ortiz. Just the value of the closer. Great relief pitch is always more valuable.
And you, Doc, do you agree with that?
I think that's a tougher call. I think this goes back to our argument last week about do you bring Babe Ruth in as a pitcher or a hitter? The hitters, the difference is the relief pitcher is going to pitch in a lot more games than a starter. So I think it narrows the gap. But I still think if you can give me, if the answer is great, I want the hitter because he's going to be in the lineup 162 games.
Good point. Good point, Doc. Akeem Olajuwon or Patrick Ewing, who's better?
Akeem Olajuwon was better. I mean, listen, Patrick Ewing had the New York market. When they played in the finals in '94, and the Knicks finally had a chance to win a championship under Ewing, the Knicks barely came short. If John Starks hit that shot in Game 6, had it not been blocked by Olajuwon, the Knicks would have won the championship. But listen, going against Shaquille O'Neal owned Patrick Ewing. Olajuwon owned Shaquille O'Neal, basically in head-to-head. And maybe owned is a wrong word. Let me retract that. Got the better of. So I apologize for those words. That was a little harsh, what I just said. But Akeem Olajuwon was better. Everyone agreed to that. Listen, Akeem Olajuwon was drafted the same year as Patrick Ewing. No one criticizes Houston. Michael Jordan. No one criticizes Houston for picking Akeem Olajuwon over Michael Jordan in the draft. No one at all. But had it been Patrick Ewing picked ahead of ahead of Jordan, there may have been a little criticism. Olajuwon was better, point blank.
How about you,
I'm not a big enough basketball fan, but Olajuwon beat Ewing in those in that NBA championship. So I would just have to say that.
Well, remember, guys, wins and losses are not from one direct player. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Houston Rockets, during that championship, definitely had the better team. So, the only thing that Patrick messed up with was that finger roll instead of slamming it. He'll always be remembered.
But you're saying you think Ewing was better than Olajuwon?
I'm saying that Olajuwon was probably a better shooter maybe than Ewing. I think Ewing was a lot better rebounder, a lot more physical than Olajuwon. I think it's different games, but I think Houston definitely had the better team than the Knicks.
Well, Olajuwon was better than Ewing. Ewing was a great Knick, the greatest Knick of all time, great player, the ultimate respect. But Olajuwon was a little better than fairness.
Okay, Linda Ronstadt or Stevie Nicks? Who's better?
Stevie Nicks. Jack's off.
Silent.
Jack, we can't hear you, Jack.
We can't hear you because you're muted. But
I muted myself intentionally there. I mean, come on, guys, why do you give me these muted? Linda Ronstadt.
Fleetwood Mac.
And you know something? I knew Jack was going to pick Linda Ronstadt, and I had a feeling you were going to pick Stevie Nicks. George Carlin or Richard Pryor? Let's keep it light. Who's better, George Carlin or Richard Pryor?
I like Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was always funny, cracked me up. So I'd go with Richard Pryor.
I'm going to go George Carlin because I laugh more when I would see him do his thing, and he had that whole thing about baseball and football.
That's a good point. Good point. Both great comedians. Steve Nash or Kyrie Irving?
Listen, Steve Nash is a coach. Let Kyrie Irving get away with anything now. Talk about a coach just along for the ride. As players, I mean, Kyrie Irving's career is not finished. Kyrie Irving at his very best, I would take him over Steve Nash at Steve Nash's very best. But if you're talking about so far with the career, if Kyrie Irving retired today and you asked me who I would take, then it would be Steve Nash. But I like Kyrie Irving's upside when he's at peak value. I go with Kyrie Irving. But listen, Kyrie Irving, the chapters of his career are incomplete. So I don't know, is that the fairest comparison?
I don't have an answer.
Easily Steve Nash, Jack. Easily. Ken Stabler or Bob Greasy?
Oh, Bob Greasy.
Jack?
I go with the snake, Kenny Stabler. I disagree. You're thinking of the Dolphins having an unbeaten team, a couple of Super Bowl wins. Kenny Stabler had a Super Bowl win, and they did beat Bob Greasy's team to end their reign as Super Bowl champs. I like the snake Kenny Stabler with those Oakland teams. I mean, Greasy was a little more of a game manager. Kenny Stabler can make things happen just a little more. What do you think, Mac? You have a good opinion on that, I know.
Hey, listen, I think that Ken Stabler was better at Bob Greasy as far as a quarterback, and as you said, making things happen. And Bob Greasy was a great quarterback. I mean, you know, we don't talk about Paul Warfield and Bob Greasy that much because of that great running game. But if I had to pick one, I would take the Snake, no doubt. So,
can I just say something about the unbeaten team of Bob Greasy very quickly? He missed something like 11 games of that season, so they were unbeaten most of the year without him. So, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, hey, listen, you can say what you want, but both great quarterbacks. I would have took Stabler, but Greasy can't argue with his leading the team. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow we got This Week in Sports, 8 to 10 a.m. Please join us if you can. And remember, if you can't join us via the screen, we're on iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, and Spotify. So check us out when you're working or driving the car. I'm Mac with your co-host Jack Hirsch and our special guest, Dr. Paul Semendinger. Wishing you a nice Saturday. Enjoy the night. Be safe. And we'll see you tomorrow.